both conservative writers, both critics of feminism, both women who have very different views of what a right-wing politics of gender should look like. So Helen Andrews, Leah Labresco-Sargent, welcome to Interesting Times.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I should note, this is the first time this show has had more than one guest. So it's a radical experiment for me as a host. So I make no promises about how I will handle the disagreements or agreements to come. But you're both here, I'm sorry to say, as theorists. And I'm going to ask, or we're going to try to debate your theories. Helen, you recently wrote an essay entitled The Great Feminization that attracted some commentary on the internet and argued, at least in my gloss, that feminism has failed us because it's made our institutions too feminized, driving men and masculine virtues out. And Leah, you have a new book called The Dignity of Dependence, where you suggest that liberal feminism has failed us by forcing women to suppress their nature and fit into workplaces and social systems made for men. So those are two fairly distinct critiques of feminism as it exists right now. But before we dig into those arguments, I want to start by asking a really simple, basic, and easy question. And I'll start with you, Helen. What is the difference between men and women?
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
I feel like I'm a Supreme Court Justice nominee.
Because the Supreme Court Justice nominee is allowed to not answer, but I'm afraid
I don't have that privilege.
That you don't have that privilege here.
Well, thank you. I think that question starts us off backwards, because in the piece that I wrote about the great feminization, I did not start from my opinions about what the differences are between men and women and then proceed to speculate on how that might affect our institutions. I started by observing our institutions in all the ways that they seem very clearly, self-evidently broken and not working the way that they're supposed to, in ways that you could sum up in the word wokeness. So I think that there are some generalizations that can be made about tendencies that are male or female, masculine virtues and vices, and feminine virtues and vices. But those things are always a spectrum, and it's hard to get a grip on them. And if I sat here and said women tend to be more emotional while men tend to be more intellectual, you could have 5 perfectly valid objections to that right off the bat. So I think I will restrict myself to the judgment on which I am confident, which is that the pathology in our institutions known as wokeness is distinctively feminine and feminized.
Hold on, Joe.
Welcome to Breakdown. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Welcome to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. We're here breaking down this conversation about feminism and the effects, the negative effects that feminism has had on society, specifically certain institutions. By these two young ladies, I was scrolling, saw this conversation. I thought it would be a very, very, very interesting conversation for us to see, because we're always hearing, especially like Black women defending feminism. We hear a lot of Black women defending feminism. So I thought it was very interesting to hear conversation of white women critiquing feminism. But there are also some things in here that, of course, it caught my attention. So I saw it caught PC's attention that they're talking about. So we're getting into this. So make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, because it go down over here. PC about to cook. So go ahead and put your bib on and get your bowl ready.
No, I just found it interesting that right off the bat she played word salad and basically filibustered her way out of answering that question, because if you have devised an entire volume of work behind this concept of the feminization of society, which I don't disagree with her with, then I think that you should be able to tell distinctively what the difference between a man and a woman is. Whether it's biological, the way we think, the way we operate, the way we move, the way we size up problems, logic versus emotional base. Men's emotion is based typically in logic, mostly, and females' logic is based in their emotions, basically. Not all the time, but mostly. And she could have went any way with that if that's her area of expertise. Another thing too that I want to be careful about, and I saw Dr. Tiersan Johnson, he covered her for me, also identified this too, was the fact that she used the term wokeness.
Oh man. Oh
you
yeah.
know, and when white folks start using the term woke, that's basically a shot at us too. And so it's like the whole thing where we're not going to talk about black people, or we're not going to use the language where we want to talk about black people as well. So especially considering she's right winged and conservative. So I just look for little dog whistle language like that before I allow somebody to go in. I mean, I don't have to 100% agree with her. Nobody does, but I think it's important that we also identify some of those markers, because sometimes we're too close, we're too quick on trying to find allies out there when basically we just happen to be on the same street at the same time, going in the same direction. In 2 blocks, I'm going to make a left, you're going to make a right, and we're never going to deal. Our paths are going to merge off or break off from there. So that's all I had to say right now about this part.
Right, Pat, you want to add? Go ahead.
Yeah, because I love that he's pointing out the markers.
Oh yeah, that was, man, I know how to pick them.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now, and in this particular case, I haven't seen this clip because like you said, we watching Cole. Well, Joe usually be seeing him, but we watching Cole. But I have seen this particular white lady before, and so I know where she's coming from as long as she's going where she usually goes. But I do know that typically when right wingers start using these terms, they're like, they're subliminals towards the community mixed into them. In her case, I think she's more or less talking about liberalism in general. But it's interesting, even with Black people, how we allow our cultural markers of expression to get tied up into other things so that they can be used in this way. The way liberals have the way white liberal women in particular,
WWF,
right, have managed to co-opt a lot of the terms and make them general terms for liberalness that then make them easily able to be targeted by other groups. I just think it's an interesting thing.
When you say that, it takes me back to when Colin Kaepernick started doing the kneel down and all that stuff. We had our debates about that. But the very next public figure to do the kneel down was a white lesbian soccer player.
Yeah.
the very next week.
But the
Columbus did.
No, but great point. The fact that he allowed that Marine to tell him, hey, this is how you should show resistance to America. Compromise. But even in this, okay.
Submission.
Right. White women co-opted woke. Because first it was staying woke. It was being conscious. It was being socially and culturally conscious, and it was specific to the Black community.
Specific to a specific subset of the Black community.
Right, and it was specific to the conscious community. So think about that. White women white women are so entrenched in Black America, in the Black community, and we think they're not, but they're so entrenched that they were able to infiltrate and co-opt something from the conscious community, the community who not supposed to mess with white people, take the concept of woke and whitewash it to what even now, like with the term Black fatigue, it's been whitewashed. We did the show on it. They're taking this stuff and they're whitewashing because there's a history behind woke that was specifically tied to the Black conscious community about social and cultural awareness of who we are, where we are in this space in America. And now wokeness is some bullshit that's out here in the stratosphere because of the co-optingness of white women, like even women like herself, the ones who go and critique feminism. But remember, these are the women who are also influencing the Black women as well.
I think actually we can actually identify where woke came from. I believe it came from the 5%ers, the 5% nation, and the nation of guys and earth. Where they was talking about, where, you know, it's 80% of the population is blind, deaf, and dumb. 10% know what's going on, but they go along with it. And then it's like 5%. It got down to like 5%.
Yeah,
like 5% woke. For a woke who knows who sees the world for what it is, and in opposition, you know, because it goes against the laws of nature. So I mean, a 5%. If you're in the chat, you know, please correct me, or please provide the full definition, because
if you're a 5%, send Joe an email and he'll correct us. Don't put your business out in the street. That's how these white ladies get this ammunition.
True that. Send it to Joe. hey, you know, they'll be like the red, the black, and the green.
Oh shoot, wrong thing. There you go, my email right here. There you go. Hit me up. Hit me up.
And if you are 5% and you leave a comment, you ain't no real 5%er.
All right, hey, her forehead is crazy, but let's keep going.
And that in a very literal sense, our institutions have gone woke because there are more women in them than there used to be.
What is the nature, the essential nature of wokeness that you associate with a certain kind of feminized politics or feminized ways of relating to other people, relating to colleagues or coworkers or anything else?
About to redefine a term that existed.
Let's pick one flavor of wokeness, and that is the Me Too movement. It was not just an increase in the volume of sex scandals. There have been sex scandals since the dawn of politics, and it was not just that there were more of them than there used to be. If it were simply a matter of more women having the self-confidence to speak up and challenge their accusers, I don't think anyone could possibly object to that. But that's not what the Me Too movement was. The Me Too movement was a change in the rules of how sex scandals work. There was a change in what kinds of behavior were held up for censure. And you had people like comedian Aziz Ansari being canceled for what was, at the end of the day, just a bad date. And he was guilty of not much more than severe awkwardness. It suddenly became mandatory for us to believe all women, no matter how credible or not credible their testimony might be. It got to the point where to even probe a woman's story with various questions about the facts of the case became an affront and disrespectful to women. So that, to me, is the essence of wokeness that you see in all of its other variations on campuses or in the workplace. Shutting down conversations, intruding politics to spheres that had previously been neutral, sort of importantly neutral. Pillars of civilization neutrality, things like the rule of law, were suddenly subject to politicization in a way that was really, really harmful. So I don't know. I don't want to say that we all know what wokeness is, but that at least were its important characteristics from my perspective. The things about it that worried me the most.
Was that really wokeness or white women being white women?
Yeah, that was good.
You know what I'm saying?
What she just did though, because he asked her to define wokeness.
Right.
And she covered herself with the caveat of saying, well, I won't define the whole thing. I'll point out one specific flavor. So she went to a flavor that she wanted to go to. But then she proceeded to list out characteristics that those of us that are associated with the term wokeness would be like, that's not.
It has nothing to do with it. Yeah, because you're associating wokeness with this backwards movement of women to falsely accuse men of SA.
Well, what she's doing is constructing her logical argument.
Yeah.
She's being allowed to dictate the terms, the definitions, and
Right.
the conditions
Right.
that she's going to argue under.
Right.
And she's also being allowed to conflate two separate issues: the idea of wokeness and the idea of what we come to call toxic femininity.
Yeah. Right.
The Me Too movement.
Right.
Social redefinitions and restructuring of society, the rules of society, as she put it. And those two things should not be put together, but she has a point to make.
But isn't she doing the exact same thing that she's supposed to be criticizing?
Well, she's a woman, Joe.
I'm just saying, because you
So
criticize.
hold on. I say that to say that the big part of her critiques are that women behave a certain way, and when women get in groups, they behave a certain way that is detrimental to society. But these things also exist in individual women. It just gets to be even worse when they're grouped up in the situations that we have at play. So me saying she's a woman isn't a dig or assault on her. It's just a recognition of the fact that the rules that she's defining and identifying, she plays by those same rules. And
Right.
that might be why she can identify them as readily as she can.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
I just wanted to say that because I realized I sound crazy as hell just then.
Well, I think that also, yeah, you're right. She came ready to talk about specific issues. So it's not like this show when we pull up, we don't know what the hell Joe's going to say or ask us about this. We really, this is not scripted, but she came in with a focus on the specific topics that she was going to answer to, regardless of what the questions were. Now, I look at it and I agree that, you know, that there are some things that that she said that are relevant in terms of the proverbial movement of the goalpost, painting men into a corner where you can't even question the validity of an accusation. And I have dealt with that personally. You know, I've told y'all before. I've dealt with that professionally. And so I know what that part of it's like, you know, the environment that's created where it's like 95%, you know, you're guilty of, you only have this 5% to work with. So I understand that part, but that's not woke. That's basically talking about politics and policy. That's actually big government. You know, big government ain't woke. Big government is the one putting you to sleep. They're not the one picking you up.
Because so it's like, especially when we're looking at it from the lens of how that affected black men, right?
Yeah.
And
I wish you would use an example of black men.
No, right. But you know, but of course, you know, we're looking at it like that. But it's like this Me Too movement, especially when it came to black men, it was detrimental because of false accusations, and she's going to attach the label woke to it. Now, would she attach that to, like, let's say, if you're comparing something like what happened to Emmett Till, would that be considered like, oh, some woke stuff? Because we talk similar stuff, right?
She would say yes. I've listened to enough of her stuff,
and that's
she
the problem.
would definitely say yes to that.
Well, and so it's like, so what part of feminism are you against? Because, well, I would say this: you're writing about what you're against in feminism. So tell us what you are for with feminism, because I hear you, but you sound like a feminist to me. You sound like a white woman feminist to me, though.
I don't think she does. Well, because I've heard a lot of her stuff too. I don't think she is much. She's speaking more so about how feminism has created the policies that have feminized society. So I'm not sure if she would be in the position. I'm not sure if she would say that women don't have a right to sort of access certain types of power and position in the world. I think she just believes that the world is run better by men who actually built it, by, you know, from that perspective. And when you become, more feminized, it weakens your nation, and it lowers your the collective esteem of the nation, because the men feel like they have no purpose in it, and so she's talked about how this kind of like defeats the progression of a powerful nation. So
but in this, from what I'm saying, in this, what they're talking about now, but yet you say that, and then at the same time, and this woke stuff is happening. It's like, I hear you, but you're still doing the white woman song and dance, though, which is detrimental to everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, I think she would say it's not, because she is pushing back on the other side of white women. So you see, you got two women battling. It's kind of like you got the modern woman versus the trad wife.
Right, but I hear you, and I'm not disagreeing with you all, but it's just like, you're telling us what you're pushing back against, but you're not telling us what you are supporting, which is also still detrimental.
Well, she's not going to do that, I think, because she's playing it. She knows who her enemy is, something that black people can't seem to figure out. She has figured that part out.
Right. And that's all I'm saying. She's talking out both sides of her neck.
Yeah. She's definitely waging a nuanced and well thought out strategy with full knowledge of who her enemy is. Again, something that black people have yet to figure out how to do.
Right.
Not that, black people have got nothing to do with this, because the walls on that, the wall ain't even black in this video. But I'm just saying, the fact there's an example on display here of two people that are engaged in conflict, and one of them is very, very, very prepared for the battle at hand. And that's the woman that we're currently listening to. Right. And so I think if we as black people are going to take anything from this outside of the colonization of the black language and terms, would be that, hey, maybe you should learn a little bit more about, that's just one thing. I don't know. I'm spitballing. I say dumb stuff all the time. So, go ahead, keep going.
So you talking about learning your enemy?
No, I mean, it sounded good when Confucius said it and when Sun Tzu said it, but they weren't black. I mean, unless you want them people that think they was black.
So black people, I got you, because it's a lot of work, black people learning their enemy, but okay.
Yeah, I mean,
black people don't look for enemies, they look for allies.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Mariah the scientist just came out with an album, I think. I don't know. Somebody famous just did something famous, so that's important.
Okay, so let's see what Blue Dress got to say. I forgot their names. I'm sorry.
Okay, I have more questions, but I want to start, Leah, with a fairly direct question, because you are identifying yourself in your book as a particular kind of feminist. And I want to ask you, what is wrong with existing feminism, liberal feminism, and how has it failed women?
So I think the essential problem is that there's a strain of feminism that sees any difference between men and women as a threat to our equality. You can see this in a variety of ways, something pretty small scale. There's a lot of going back and forth on the college level about where the 3-point line should be for men and women's basketball. Should it be equivalently hard for a man and woman to hit the shot? Or should it be at exactly the same spot so no one can say that women aren't playing as hard? I don't actually care that much about basketball, I'll level with you. But I think that anxiety that to draw two lines on the court would in some way imperil women's dignity is wrongheaded. And you see it to have a real cost in other domains, where that attempt to treat women like defective men who are nearly identical, nearly swappable, and when we can close that gap, no one will be able to tell us we're less than, ultimately does a fundamental injustice to women, and it results in violence towards babies. Because, of course, pregnancy is the most obvious way women differ from men. It won't ever be fully closed.
And a big part of your argument is that the institutions of American life or Western life since the feminist revolution have basically said to women, yes, you can join up, you can have the jobs you want, you can have the equality you want, but we will not accommodate ourselves to what you just defined as the greatest female distinctive, right? So you have to, in effect, become as men in order to enter the professional classes.
And when you aren't, it's kind of a personal hobby. You hear that language of personal choice, not only on the left with regard to abortion, but for conservatives in opposition to things like SNAP benefits for unmarried women. Well, you chose to have this baby while you were poor, and everyone knows you could have chosen differently when that could entail not having sex or killing the baby in the womb after the sex has been had. So there's a sense of the baseline person does not have someone depend on in this way. I think pregnancy is the starkest example, and it's the gendered example. But the sense that the fundamental nature of the human person is someone who isn't constrained by someone else's need isn't just a problem for women. It's a problem for all of us, because each of us has people who depend on us, even if we go through our whole lives childless, because we have parents who increasingly are aging without the supports to age all alone.
How do you distinguish between...
At Raising Cane's, we focus on making the most craveable chicken finger meals, getting them right every time.
If you live in Florida and have a good driving record, you're being scammed by...
I'm gonna lend you my joint.
dependence and weakness?
Huh?
So I'm gonna lend
My YouTube.
my YouTube Plus.
Yeah, because I don't have the ass, bro.
Hey man, leave me alone.
Even though everyone is dependent in some way, part of your argument is that by necessity, women are a more dependent sex in some ways. What distinguishes that from saying women are just the weaker sex?
So here's where I will push back on the definition. Women are more directly exposed to other people's need, but historically, men also view their bodies as something they extend over someone else who needs them, not over a baby through pregnancy, but by placing themselves between an outside threat and their family or their country. We live in an unusually safe and prosperous time, so it's much less likely that you will think, I will take a wound to my body for the sake of my family than that your wife will.
But so then it is fundamentally issues about biology, family, and reproduction, where you would say that liberal feminism essentially asks women to postpone, delay, things that are natural to women. But so, Helen.
So hit on that. Because that makes me think about the editor of Cosmo magazine, something Brown Douglas, something. I'll find her name, but and her view on how women should be, and her view on shaping women and making women more like men in the workforce, so you can have more of a production in the workforce. But also, going back to her, one of the early examples she was using, because they're really getting at, like, feminism has painted a picture that there are no real biological, or they're basically like there are no differences between men and women. And because that there are no differences between men and women, like, especially like the example she used in the WNBA, even though you have a smaller ball, even though a lot of other dimensions are customized for the sport, we're looking at like the height of the rim, and the argument of, well, we're not going to lower the rim because we are just as capable as the men in this. But we can see the outcome of that product. But that's the example that she's using. But we are still looking at narratives that put both men and women in the same box and say, because it's like, if you can do it, I can do it too. Like, and it skews the differences, but also getting into the point where she was talking about the idea or the feeling of being disposable, or being something that you are used, your physical prowess, your physical body is used, because you're talking about women as far as nurturing, but men when it comes to protecting. So I hear what she's saying. I really don't disagree with what I just forgot her name again, Blue Dress is saying, but I get the context that she's saying.
Leah.
Yeah, Leah. I get the context that she's putting it in, because these are a lot of the narratives that we do hear from the blue hair septum ring group of, hey, we are exactly the same. And it's like, until we feel like we not no more. So I do get where she's going with that. So
Well, I think that in a lot of ways she did what the other lady did, just on the other side.
Yeah.
So a lot of the same smoke we have for the other lady, you know,
We got to have it.
Ain't no point in repeating it because it'd be basically repeating a lot of the same shit. But I do think she did a good job of kind of reforming the discussion and putting her own spin. You know, she prepared her own logical argument. So now we can at least say we're looking at two people that are prepared for each other. And that's going to make it interesting. She went to the baby example. I don't have a problem with that example. I think that example is much more nuanced than the pictures they try to paint with it. But that's not a discussion for this particular show. But I do think that it is an interesting perspective because he asked her, where did she think feminism was going wrong? And she pointed out this all things we can do, everything men can do as a problematic perspective. I think a lot of what drives that is people don't want to see where they're not equal. They don't mind not being equal. They just don't want to see it.
Right.
Watching the WNBA, they can't tell that the ball is smaller.
Mm-hmm.
They would be able to tell if you move that 3-point line.
But
too much. And college basketball kind of preps you for a lot of that. But you would be able to see it if you lowered the goal. Like they would be able to feel it if you lowered the rim. Do I think lowering the rim would jack up their shot? No. Anybody that's played basketball for any amount of time can tell you, all of us grew up playing on the adjustable rims. You need maybe 1 or 2 shots to get your shit straight, and then you good.
Well, in the NFL, right? You can be tackling most people. Let's say, especially around the 2010s when they started changing the tackling rules. You were tackling one whole way your whole life, technique and everything your whole life. They changed the rules, and you had to adjust to the game. There's an adjustment, and so women can adjust if they're professional athletes. They can.
But they can't. No, here's the issue. They feel like they shouldn't have to.
But that's the problem. Once again, like I said, we see the outcome of the product.
Well, were you done, Pat? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah. No, I'm done. Go ahead.
I think we're talking the difference is equity and equality.
Yes.
And equality is we're all going to have the same opportunities, right? So this base is more meritorious. In the nutshell, to simplify it, right? Equity is when, if you're, 5'2", we're going to stack the blocks up so that you're the same height as somebody that's 6'2", or so that when you extend your arms, they both reach the rim at the same rate. In other words, the outcomes, they want equal outcomes. Which doesn't necessarily work because you got to qualify for those outcomes. And if you don't put the best first, there's a concept called what do they call it? It deals with upward mobility, but also the process of diminishing returns. And what you're seeing is in a lot of these different spaces when they have tried to use equity as a drawing board because the original job was not designed for women, and it was designed for men, and vice versa, that there's more difficulty trying to fit that round peg into that square box, into that square hole. And you can look at the different professions. And first of all, let's be clear about something. Women really don't want to do the work men do. They don't mind like the executive work. I'm not saying they like the white collar work, fine. But the blue collar work, women aren't applying for those. When you talk about the military, right? What is it, like less than 10% of the military is female? I don't know the numbers offhand, but
yeah, I don't know those offhand either.
You know, but
Look it up, though.
yeah. Well, Joe's looking it up right now. Pat's looking it up. Okay, Pat's our fact finder, y'all.
Yeah.
So, but the bottom line, and then the qualifications change. Same thing with firemen, or now it's fire people, right? Before you have to be
17.7%.
Okay, so that's so it's almost twice as much, but not nearly, in line with the fact that there are more women than men in America. Okay, so all along the lines, when those particular things are all things being said, feminism really has morphed into cherry picking specific situations,
right?
In which we can look at these particular examples as to why women thrive like men. And I get it; it's a male-dominated society, but when you put in, like, if you want to construct a building, like, who do you feel comfortable with doing the construction? Like, if I got to go into that building and it's 40 floors, 40 stories, and I'm asking women that, who would you want to build it? Who would you want to be the one, guiding the rhubarb and the steel and all that other stuff and the heavy equipment? And do you want to be walking along that tight line on the 35th floor where there's nothing but you and a string of rope that determines whether or not you fall, 350 feet to your death? You know what I'm saying? Those things are like, I was doing Uber back in like 2017, 2018. And I had this brother and who was working on repairing highway bridges. They put this thing, if you don't know, if you've never seen it, it's like they put this sub-level of planks under the actual bridge they're working on. And you have to walk on those planks in order to do the repair work, the painting, the what they call it, the molding of the steel and all that other stuff. You have to work on that. And he was telling me about how this one brother, well, I didn't say it was a brother, he said this one guy missed a step on the ladder and fell from the bridge to the ground and died on his way to the hospital. Like, I know that's just a one-off. It's not necessarily a one-off, but those are the types of risks you take when you do the work that men do. Mm-hmm. And men go into that, so there are specific places that women are more formidable in society. As natural nurturers, women are better teachers in school sometimes. Not, you still need a blend. Yeah. But that mother hen thing that that the children in kindergarten need. The nursing profession. You see more women in it than men. I've seen more men lately become nurses, but for the most part, the majority of nurses are women. There are just certain things and professions in life, and I'm not even going to tackle sports because that's just like I'm not going to tackle sports. Although I do like watching female rugby. But yeah. I enjoy it. But we have to acknowledge that there are differences, and the difference doesn't make you lesser than, because everybody's role has to be respected. I think the biggest problem with feminism is it's grossly disrespected the role of men. And we can look at in the Black community to the point where our women don't even feel like we should have a say-so when things are going in our own houses. So, and they don't identify as feminists, but they have all the traits of feminists in that matter and regard.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to fight us.
Because like when we having a conversation about like real biological differences or real social differences or ideological differences and things, like there are stark differences between men and women, and it's okay. And
Yeah.
but I think, like, if you want to say radical feminism, but because I'm also having the question: is there a good form of feminism?
Yeah.
What is
I don't
that?
know that I would call it feminism. Wouldn't call it that. I think because I think anytime you start talking about isms, it's an ism for a reason. But I do think there's a such thing as healthy feminine energy, and there's such thing as healthy feminine frame.
But is it feminine? But can it be? Will we put it under the label as feminism, though?
What we call it an ism. I think that is a game of semantics and an ideological thing that people are going to have to, because a lot of that is wrapped up in how do you define feminism? What does it mean to actually have an ism? I personally don't. I think if you're going to say that you want women to have equal access to the opportunities that they want to have access to, equal access to the opportunity, not equal access to outcomes, equal access to opportunity, then I don't necessarily have a problem with that. If you're going to advocate for women to be able to be in relationships and not get their asses beat with no recourse, I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of what modern feminism has become has less to do with equality for women and more to do with shaming and subjugating men, bringing men under heel.
Right.
And so that if that is how you're associating feminism, then no, there is no such thing as positive feminism. But I do think the nature of men and women are different. The nature of how we exist in space is different. Men are more passive in relationships. Women are more active in certain regards. But in those key regards we like to think about, take protection, for instance. Women, like the lady in the clip, we'll go back to the information she used. She said women put their bodies on the line when they give birth.
Mm-hmm.
Men put their bodies on the line for their women. Every day they have a woman. Every single day I have a woman. My body is on the line. Now, it doesn't matter that things don't happen every day. A lot of the times things don't happen because I'm there. But if something happens, it is my duty and responsibility, socially and culturally, to step in and make sure that if anybody's going to be hurt, it's going to be me. She can breathe easy knowing that she won't experience any pain until I experience some. So I think like that whole, and that's a lot of the nature of a lot of the discussions that we talk about when we talk about the relationship between men and women. That women cook and clean, even though in the Black community that's hogwash. But, like
that's the result of narratives, though. These type of narratives.
We talk about the narratives and how the narratives are the guns and the bullets are the people sent out to enlighten the world with them. In the Black community, we need to be having very different conversations. We've talked about this on several other shows about how in the Black community, Black men are the most egalitarian men on the planet. We are the most equity-centered and focused men in America. I can't say on the planet, but I can definitely say in America because that's where the research is. Black men are more likely to be involved in their children's lives, help with homework, do chores, cook meals. Like Black households tend to operate with a lot of equity. So
Black men who die of natural causes at a premature age as a result of all of the physical and emotional labor that we take on.
Right. And so then there's also that piece, because there is also that narrative that women in relationships carry the bulk of the emotional load. And in the Black community, that is not actually true. But that narrative comes over from external communities that we've just heard and listened to, and we take on. But here's why we take them on. Because, and you argue with me on this till you're blue in the face, and if you make a good point, I might change my mind. But the nature of women is to operate in the group. And the nature of men is to operate outside of the group. And the group dynamics or the group stereotype here, the group is led by white women, which is why white women complaints become all women complaints. And why white women perspectives become all women perspectives. And so I think that's one of the things we're struggling with. When the leaders of the community of women come up and say, white women are, they say women do all of this, all of the women in that group, generally speaking, of course, all of the women in that group take on that narrative as the truth. And we continue to struggle with that. So the question becomes, how do we push back against that?
Mm-hmm. Well, for one, it's looking at conversations like this. You know, the one scholar that pops to the top of my mind when I'm thinking about it is Dr. John Henry Clark told us to study everything and everybody. Analyze everything and everybody, read as much as we can, know what everybody's talking, know how conversations are being framed. Because once again, like you said, these conversations, these scholarly conversations help frame the conversations that we have in our regular days, in our everyday lives, and the rhetoric and the things that we use. Because once again, being under the system of white supremacy, we come up with some thoughts, and we do come up with some original ideas and concepts and things, but a lot of people don't realize how much of the stuff that you think is original is influenced by your environment and the messages that you take in around you. And we don't control most of the messages that we take in around us. So being able to listen to this conversation from an objective point of view, and then look at how do conversations like this actually affect Black people, Black women, Black men, Black children, Black families. Because we, like, once again, we hear what they're saying, but both on, you know, we hear what y'all saying, but we also hear what y'all saying. And that's why I asked the question, well, because one of them alluded to like the better part of feminism. That's why I asked, well, what's the good part of feminism?
You know, the irony behind that, and I'm glad Pat brought it up about resurface, where the woman was talking about the men become the shield. Women's, even modern day feminists still believe that as men, we're supposed to be, you know, the protector. We're often called the protector and provider. It's amazing how what modern feminism has done is relieved all the duties that women have in society. You know, we've given them all the privilege of society. So basically, there's no excuses. I mean, well, there's no excuse that won't do. Oh, why didn't I do this? Well, it wasn't my fault. And, you know, it was never their fault. But when they have their gains, it was all me. So I think another aspect too, though, and something that's overlooked is the work of Eleanor Roosevelt and Pauli Murray. And shout out to BGS Itmore, who did a whole did a whole string of shows on this. But Pauli Murray was a Black woman, and she was one of the main ones who determined that that Black women should put their energy behind womenism or the feminism push, because they said the men were getting killed off and there would be no point in investing in the men because the men weren't going to live long enough to pass on the legacy of their families. So, and I think that's, you know, so basically when you look at how feminism took on a lot of the rhetoric, and I'm not saying rhetoric in a bad way, but just like a lot of the philosophies of the civil rights movement, it was because of people like Pauli Murray and the work they did to utilize the momentum from the civil rights movement, to energize the feminist movement. And I think that's probably why we see a lot of the crossover, because it was successful. And not only was it successful, it provided sort of like a blueprint on how to perform a movement. Other groups are just better than us because we can't seem to be focused on doing what's right for us.
Right.
So when other groups do it, you know, the feminists, the LGBTQ, you know, the different ethnic groups that come to America, what they do is they take everything that we did, everything that our elders and ancestors did in regards to putting together or understanding how to navigate in that matter to get political gain, in order to that's just cool, Rick, y'all in the back if y'all hear somebody screaming and hollering. Don't worry, I don't have them chained up or anything. But but you know, the bottom line is we have not taken those things to prosper for our community. Like I said, the black community is not looking for enemies to take down, it's looking for allies to build with. Everybody will take us to be and become and utilize our energy, our intellectual acuity to help push their movement forward. But then when it comes to us, it's like, we ain't got to do it. Y'all. We pulled ourselves up our bootstraps. Why can't y'all do it? And so when I see white feminists, you know, the one thing they're not talking about, and even these women anti-feminists, so forth, they're not really talking about taking down their men. They're never really talking about replacing their men,
replacing the system at all.
No,
they just go against the specific factions that they don't like.
And Tommy Curry in his book The Man Not talks about how feminism really was just the other wing of white supremacy being formed, where the origins of feminism was that white women wanted the same control and domination, dominion over society that white men had.
Yes.
So, it was never about equality for all. The only reason they used black women in the past is because they needed the numbers. They didn't have the numbers to affect change. And they realized that black women can affect change more so because black men didn't have the power to, suppress them the same way white men did. And, so, and I know that language is a little harsh, but that's just the warlike way that they looked at it.
It's real.
Black men don't suppress black women. Black men,
we never have.
We bite our tongues a lot.
We never have in this country. But like you said, that warlike mentality, we have to understand that even in listening to conversations like this, listening to what they're saying, listening to what they're not saying, but also understanding everything in the historical context.
Well, for brothers, man, you want to get back on code, man. Come to my podcast, Office Hours, Professor Carlton Jones, and come to especially not the one I just did, but the one I did
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. When I spoke about black men remember when. You know what I'm saying? There you go.
I got it in my Spotify. It hit. I'm glad you put it on Spotify because it hit, and I just I hit play and I get to listening.
Yeah. We up, as they say. We're up. and but we talk about, because at this point, man, identifying it is cool, and I'm glad we are able to identify it. But we also have to identify as black men, how do we regain our place in the world? And one of the things we have to do is we have to actually, remember when we carried ourselves with self-respect. Remember when our self-esteem, our collective esteem as black men were that at the time, specifically during that particular show, I pointed to when a lot of those brothers were coming home from wars. And when black men came home from wars, they were empowered, because not only did they get to kill white men, they saw white men getting killed. And, so it's different. It's kind of like the psychology behind a lot of these mass unalivings that you see. And people say, well, there's no bodies. How come you don't see any ambulances, this and other? That's because the American media understands that if they showed carnage with white folk on it, it would loosen up. It would kill. Dang, I tried to get away from that word. My bad. It would distort their image of being invulnerable. It would distort that superiority complex that people have about them, that they can't be defeated. And I'm not pushing for that type of response, but the visualization of it breaks that person in front of you down, and you realize you're flesh and blood just like I am. and now we can operate, from a more black men can operate from more from a field of equity, if we will, in terms of equality that's going to lead to equity. So, but in regards to what we just witnessed, that's basically the rich having a conversation with the rich, in regards to the way they, the well-off, the well-to-do is having a conversation with each other. And it's sort of like, just a tea and crimpet conversation. It's an intellectual, academic conversation.
How do we better control the minds of the masses? What better ideals should we use? Because we don't like this one and we don't like this one, but we do like this one.
What's funny too is we only listen to about 5-10 minutes of the actual conversation.
It's 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes. But it don't take a whole day to recognize sunshine. No, we're astute brothers. We read, we study, we know what's going on, we pay attention.
Hey.
And they didn't have to say a lot for us to be able to be like, hey, we hear, once again, we hear what you're saying and we hear what you also saying.
I like that you said it don't take a lot to recognize sunshine. That's a great point. And then remember, right after he met Sunshine, he called his family. He called his family right afterwards. Tell your mama I ain't coming home no more.
Take it easy.
That's a brilliant. I'm Joe. You don't think we be knowing, man?
That come from Common. That's that the son of light. It don't take a whole day to recognize sunshine. Yeah, but it's real.
From Harlem Nights.
Oh, for real? Oh, you can tell I ain't watched that movie like that.
Oh, damn.
I'm being real. Harlem Nights is one black movie that I ain't watched. I've seen it like 5 times, but I ain't watched it like all the other black people.
Oh, man, you gotta meet Richie.
How you forget that part?
Hey, man. Hey, now if you're talking about Belly.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, you know what? We gonna have a black movie night.
We definitely do the black movie review.
We did the black. Yeah, well, we need to redo our black movie.
We need to do it again because
we need to do it right.
Well, we did like 30, 40 episodes.
We went through, yeah. We need to do it right. Go through black movies and see just what's the best black movie of all time. That would be fun.
Oh yeah, we had the Field of 64.
Yeah, it started at like 200.
200. Yeah, then we narrowed it down to 64.
We need to get another group of I did like with that one in particular, I did like having the female perspective on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to get a group of another 2 or 3 women to do something like that with us.
Yeah. Well, we know one.
We do know one. All right, so we need another 2 because all I know is one.
That's the one I know.
And I don't think she'd have seen none of them.
Spam. Nah, probably not. So
I'm gonna ask her next. I'll talk to her.
Nah,
hey, that's a good idea, y'all. Look at y'all.
Hey, listen. Hey, look it. Tell your mom, put your mom on the phone. Hey, I ain't never coming home. Take it easy.
Hey, never coming. Because he met the prostitute named Sunshine.
Yeah.
Girl,
yeah.
On him.
Okay.
Yeah. She put sunshine. She throw up in
yeah. Turn to gold. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I remember that part. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's too late, though.
Hey, man. Hey. Can't take my black card.
You're gonna have a subscribers revolt.
Hey, man.
Oh my.
What I do know is when white women talking to pay attention. That's what I do know. That's what I do.
Oh, don't say it like that, Joe. Because the black women gonna be like, so you don't pay attention when black women talking?
Yeah.
Just say, don't say it like that. Like you can say it, just don't say it. Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done with life, and it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done.
We've all been Jermaine at some point.
I And it's worse because your name is Joe, Joe, Jermaine. Both of them was Jacksons.
I know, right? I know, right? Hey, man, y'all know what it is, though. Ain't no sense of beating this horse. It's already dead, you know. Listening to people have conversations about things that overall do affect our community. They shape the narratives that help shape the narratives within our community. And we know who we're the culture, but we know who the culture is. We know the roots of it. We know the roots of it. We know who controls the media. We know who really controls the school system, who control really the thought processes of the people. We know that. You got to pay attention. And we see the effects that feminism has had on our community. So it's disingenuous for any of them to try to look at any positive angle in feminism, but anything that they're critiquing, we do agree with a lot of the critiques, but we do see talking out of both sides of the net, and to even look for positive angles in it. And we know how, especially for our community, it didn't work out, and it's still not working out. So being able to call out that disingenuousness and all of that as well. So FetLifeStation.com, you already know. Let me pull it back up. FetLifeStation.com. He also on Spotify. So
it's the True Stories Podcast Network. The True Stories Podcast Network. We're all over the place.
Make sure you check it out. Thepax.org. All the historical information you need, intellectual information you need. There's no need to be like, I don't know where to find information. Thepax.org, as well as ontheshoulders1.com. You see both of them on the screen. Access them, a lot of information. Links are in the description. Joseph, Patrick, Professor Carl Tone Jones. We out of here.